Hello there, and welcome to Daily Faceoff Live here on Thursday, December 12th. Tyler Yaremchuk and Frank Seravalli with you. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app, use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Frank, Thursday, that means you're on Amazon tonight, by the way. Giddy up, there's a little plug. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, busy day. Oh, Thursdays are always busy. Looking forward to Coast tonight. And there's always something happening. If not, you got to drum something up.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to drill in on the New York Rangers a little bit later on with our friend Jon Goyens, who is here for the big segment, the return of the coach's room. We also have a Dominion Lending Center poll question up right now. If you were Rangers GM Chris Drury, would you be looking to add more scoring or would you be looking to add a defenseman? We're going to ask Jon about that as well, as he'll give us a breakdown on the Rangers and whether or not they can get back to their elite ways. Let's even start there, actually, Frank, because it was a quiet night last night in the NHL with just a couple of games on tap, and I don't think we need to spend any time on the Ottawa Senators pumping the Anaheim Ducks, but the Sabres slip continues as they fall 3-2 to the Rangers. I kind of looked at this game as one where there was not going to be a winner. Like, if the Sabres would have beaten the Rangers, I wouldn't have sat here and been like, man, look out, Sabres are back. And I mean, the Rangers, yes, they do ultimately beat the Sabres, but I'm not sitting here and giving New York any flowers for beating the lowly Sabres.
Well, no, but look, for a team that wins have been hard to come by in general, like, I think you can take it wherever you can get it. And if this is, maybe not your Super Bowl, so to speak, but this checks a box for you as a team that's, hey, kind of was floundering in the wild card race here and maybe creates a little bit of separation between themselves and some of these other teams that have been in the mix, like the Sabres. Well, you take it where you can get it. But looking at this from Buffalo's point of view, is interesting to watch Lindy Ruff kind of use the stick last night. Go back to the first period. Owen Power makes a couple critical turnovers and he plays a total of 2 minutes and 57 seconds in the first. Then you go to the second period and JJ Peterka, that's the whipping boy for the second period. He gets 1 minute and 11 seconds. So what this tells me is not only has the temperature been turned up way up in Buffalo, but also now Lindy Ruff and these players are starting to feel it as well when you start to see some of the discipline being handed out.
I know we talked about, like the John Tortorella handling of Matvei Michkov, right? And with today, and I'm sure John could even talk about this too, the modern coach needs to be a little bit more sensitive with these young players. It's not like it was maybe 20 years ago in hockey, but I'll say the Sabres don't need that at all. I think some tough love is maybe good for this team as they try to get things back on the rails and try to establish some sort of a culture with accountability.
Look, I think there's been some accountability, though, of late, and even going back to last year. Like, I'm looking at this team and going, I don't know if it's accountability. It feels more so like a manager that really likes a lot of his players, but also knows that at the same time, this collection of players isn't collectively getting the job done. And so just having good players doesn't mean you have a good team.
Yeah, and that's fair. For the Sabres, it is not going to get any easier over the next little bit. This weekend, they got back-to-backs against Washington and Toronto. That could be a big yikes for Buffalo as they continue along. And for the Rangers, you're just trying to build up some positive momentum here and go on a run. They're back in action on Saturday with a matinee as they host the Los Angeles Kings. Speaking of those Los Angeles Kings, Frank, that's a nice segue into our next topic. You said this morning on the DFO Rundown with Jason Gregor, which is out now for people to find wherever they get their podcast from. You said the LA Kings are one of the teams to watch here in the next little bit, and we are 8 days away from the holiday roster freeze. So before I ask you about some other teams, let's zero in on the Kings really quick. What do you get the sense that Rob Blake is in the mood to do?
Well, I think this is a team that has exceeded some expectations, at least externally this season, and now winners of 6 in a row. They've kind of positioned themselves here in a space to add. And I think they were talking to the Philadelphia Flyers last week. I don't think anything's imminent. Also, don't know that it's dead. But kind of as we've all been focused on teams where it's going the other direction, Nashville, Pittsburgh, for a second it was Boston with the changes that they were making, all these teams that have had disappointing years. How about some other teams that might be in a position to add? And so I would add the Los Angeles Kings to that mix because I think they've been in conversation with a couple teams about what it might cost and checking out the marketplace. might you be able to grab a good young player from Buffalo, for instance? I think there's a ton of different possibilities on the table for Rob Blake and his team. For, as good as they've played, there have also been some holes in this lineup. Quentin Byfield has had a really tough season after signing that big extension in the offseason. So, look, this is a good team that's got some good players that wants to break through to that next threshold of not just being a playoff team, which they've been for the last 3 years, but taking it a step beyond that and being a team that can advance and enter the conversation as a contender.
Yeah, that is totally fair. And another thing that you're probably going to hear with them is the old internal deadline ad, because they'll be looking to get Drew Doughty back in the new year. Outside of LA, we've also spent, we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 weeks talking about the Nashville Predators and what they could be looking to do. So that's probably another team who you can keep an eye on as someone who could be active ahead of the roster freeze. Anyone else jump out to you around the league, Frank, is, a GM who's starting to make some calls or could have a bit of an itchy trigger finger in the next 8 days?
No, I think the Flyers are one of those teams that is on the map as open to doing anything. They've got a few players that probably could use a change of scenery. We saw Colorado. They're probably going to sit tight for a bit after changing out their goaltending. I think Utah is always calling around and trying to understand what the prices look like. Vancouver is definitely still in the mix to add some efficiency to their blue line and the way that they move the puck. So those are the teams that I would focus on for right now as sort of potential teams that could make a move before the trade freeze and the holiday season.
Yeah, trade freeze lasts a total of 5 days. It goes from December 20th until December 25th. Let's move along, Frank. I got a couple of games here. Again, there was like 2 hockey games last night on the ice in the NHL, so I figured why not have a little bit of fun today, and let's start with one we like, and that's overreaction season. I'm going to give you a take based on, some recency bias, and I'll understand that, and you're going to tell me scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you are absolutely insane, that is never going to happen, 1 being no, that actually probably will happen. It's not an overreaction at all. And let's start with one guy who has been a topic of conversation this week, and that's Anthony Stolarz in Toronto. I'm going to say it is not a fluke at all what he's doing through 30 games, and Stolarz will be a Vezina finalist this year. Frank, what say you?
Ooh, Vezina finalist. I'm going to give that a 7.
Okay.
I think he's got a chance. I think there still is a lot to be determined in terms of workload. He's career high in games started in any season is 24. So he's never really played more than a quarter of the year in starts. He's rapidly approaching that. And not to say he can't do it or the workload will be too much. At some point, every backup goes to being a starter or at least gets an opportunity to run with it. You're not born a starter typically in the NHL. So he has a chance, but as consistent as he's been, he's also done a really good job of covering up some things for the Leafs, who have defended a lot better this season. I think he's their unquestioned MVP this year. I really do.
Yeah. We talked a lot about Mitch Marner while Austin Matthews is out, but I do think when you look at the body of work as a whole, Stolarz is without a doubt been their most important player. Our friends at Bet365 have Stolarz at 5th on the Vezina rankings right now at 30.
So who are the guys in front of him? Gustafson's got to be there. Hellebuck.
Shesterkin and Ottinger are the other 2.
Yeah. So look, he has a chance to be in that mix for sure, but I think you also can't sleep on the season that Gustafson's having for the league leading Minnesota Wild.
Fair. All right. We talked a little bit about the Calder Trophy earlier this morning on the rundown as well. So you give the Stolarz one a 7. I'm curious where you'll come out on this. I'm going to say it's Michkov and Celebrini and no one else. At the end of the year, there will not be another rookie who will get a top 2 vote for the Calder. 1 to 10. What do you say?
Ooh, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't miss anyone, right?
Yeah, like Stankoven's the one who's still kind of up there in the race and could maybe turn on the Jets. Lane Hutson's getting some love. You've talked about Dustin Wolf as well. I just don't think any of those 3 guys are going to do enough to jump either one of these 2. I think it'll be pretty unanimous.
Look, I know that Lane Hutson has warts, but he's a defenseman and he still has more points than Celebrini right now. So I will give that a 9. I think it's very likely that those are the 2 guys, but I can't 100% completely rule out that we see some more ridiculousness from Hudson. But Celebrini is such a battler. He's in the mix, and frankly, Michkov has a competitive streak in him too. But I think some people are surprised with how the 18-year-old in Celebrini has stepped right in and just on a night-to-night basis has, done it for the San Jose Sharks. I think there's a pretty solid bet that those two guys get the only top 2 votes.
All right, next one I got for you. Connor McDavid is currently 8 points back of Nathan MacKinnon in the scoring race. He's got 25 points in his last 13 games. And I figured it was too mild to just say that Connor McDavid will win the scoring race this season. So let me throw this your way. Not only will Connor McDavid win the point race, the Oilers will sweep the scoring awards, and Leon Draisaitl will win the Rocket Richard. Both of them, Frank, McDavid and Draisaitl, the Oilers' dynamic duo. Could they sweep the scoring awards?
They could, but I'm also not seeing Nathan MacKinnon going anywhere or Kirill Kaprizov. That's the thing. So I'll give that an 8.
Really, an 8?
No, you know what? I'm gonna go 7.
Oh.
I'm gonna amend my answer and say 7 because you think it's higher than that?
I think Draisaitl's the favorite to win the Rocket with the way things have been going for him. Like, he's gotten bounces galore. And here's the other thing, Frank.
Man, you're sleeping on Sam Reinhart, though.
Okay, but the Oilers' power play is the thing for me. So far this season, Draisaitl only has 20% of his goals coming on the power play. If you look back over the last 3-4 years, traditionally, he lands between 45 to 50% of his goals coming on the power play. I think he's due for a power play heater right away, and that'll just extend the gap.
If you didn't live in Edmonton and watch the Oilers so closely, would you feel the same way? I'm not saying that's the homer view. I'm just saying, like, it's a solid point and math view. Would you have the same view?
I think I would. Leon Draisaitl is one of the only, 4 players to be up in the high 50, 60 goal range over the last few years. So he's shown he can get to that level before.
But
I don't
so
think
has
it's
Reinhart.
crazy.
It's not like we're at a point where he's not going to be able to duplicate it. So a sweep means that, not only will McDavid surpass MacKinnon and Kaprizov, entirely possible at the pace that he's been on, but will Draisaitl run away from Reinhart? I think, or Rantanen for that matter, or Kaprizov. I think those guys are going to be in the mix till the bitter end. And frankly, when you look at the standings, that might be the only races we have this year that are worth watching.
I think that is a fair take as well. And listen, it's the first time this week I've even brought up the Oilers, and we got Maddie in the chat. Tyler pumping Edmonton? Say it ain't so. Okay, fine. So on that, we'll move on. We'll move on, Frank. I got a pick 'em for you as well to wrap it up before we get to Jon Goyens. A couple for you here, and no fence sitting. That's the rule. You got to pick A or you got to pick B. First one, I'm going to force you to take over as GM for one of these two teams. Which one would you pick, Buffalo or Detroit? You have to take over, and you got to get them to be a playoff team, we'll say within 2 years. Which task do you take?
It's not even close. I'm taking the Buffalo Sabres.
Okay.
I think that defense core is something to build around. I know they've struggled. I think they've got a ton of talented forwards. Maybe Detroit has it in its pipeline for future years, but I think Buffalo is closer. And I think they check more positional boxes for me than Detroit. Detroit's defense is a mess, and I don't know an easy way to fix it.
Fair. If you did take over as GM of the Buffalo Sabres, we've heard a lot of talk about, do they do something big with this roster? Bowen Byram's name gets thrown around. Dylan Cousins' name gets thrown around. Would you make a big move immediately, or do you think you can still wait and see?
As much as I'd be afraid that someone is going to be the next Sam Reinhart or Jack Eichel somewhere else, I'd make a big move because this current collection of players has shown year in and year out that they cannot do it. And continuing to hope and pray and wish that you can bang your head against the wall enough times that they'll finally break through. I think when you have a limited run as GM and you know that it can't last forever, Kevin Adams knows the clock is ticking on him. You got to do something.
Fair. Next one I got for you today on the DFO rundown. You were kind of wondering, is Kirill Kaprizov going to get a contract that's similar to Leon Draisaitl? So let's go to a hypothetical world where Kaprizov does exactly that. He gets the exact same cap hit on a long-term deal as Leon Draisaitl. And now here's your pick 'em. You have to start a franchise. Each of these guys are making the same money. Who do you build around?
Do you get them at the same age though? That's the question.
No, you get them like starting next season as the extensions kick in, $14 million or whatever. Kaprizov, I'll give you the age, is 27 years old. Draisaitl, 29, but Kaprizov's a later birthday. So it's actually only about an 18-month gap between the two.
I'm going to take Draisaitl, and I'm sure most people probably would too, as much as I love Kaprizov. And I think in some ways this is going to sound funny to say, he might be a more complete player than Draisaitl. One part of the equation that you get to when making a determination like this is we don't know yet exactly how Kirill Kaprizov is going to react in the postseason when the pressure is on. We know exactly how Leon Draisaitl will, and he's one of the best playoff players of all time. 108 points in 74 career playoff games. I have to take the devil I know before I decide on the devil I don't.
The thing that would be tempting, you talk about the devil you don't know. You don't know how Kirill Kaprizov would be viewed if he had a chance to play with someone like a Connor McDavid or even just an elite centerman in general. And
He's had to do it all on his own.
And that's, I think, why. And I'm not just doing this to try beat the Homer allegations you were all throwing to me in the last topic, but I think that's almost why I would be tempted to take Kaprizov. One, a little bit of a younger guy. And, I think I'll disagree. Like D. Lee said, he's a better two-way player. I don't know if I fully agree with that. I think when Leon Draisaitl's dialed in, he's a very good defensive player and he's very smart. But the age and also the idea of like, what if I could get him a truly elite centerman? Man, Kaprizov could be something else.
Yeah, but that's the other thing that Draisaitl has in his favor is he can play center, but he could also play the wing if you wanted him to. The versatility is better.
That's fair as well. This actually probably would have been a good poll question, just reading through the way the chat's going back and forth on this one. But we'll move along and get to the actual topic of our poll question today, the New York Rangers. Let's dig into it with the coach's room. It's brought to you by Fountain Tire. You and your family safety is important, which is why they treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle. If you need new tires, maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop in a Fountain Tire today and they can sort you out. And right now you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 select tires, including Goodyear, until December 14th. Plus, save $50 or more on any service of $150. Some restrictions apply. Stop in a Fountain Tire today or check them out online, fountaintire.com. Always a pleasure to welcome in former QMJHL head coach Jon Goyens to the program. And John, it was interesting. 11 months ago, I guess, we had a segment talking about the New York Rangers, who at the time were the top team in the NHL. And you kind of put your hand up and said like, whoa, let's not crown them the champs just yet. It was very interesting to go look back on. And one of the areas we really zeroed in on was the neutral zone for them, not killing the rush. This year, they've gone away from the 1-3-1, but they're still bottom in the league for rush chances against. So what's continuing to not work with this Rangers system?
Details. I mean, again, I talked in January 8th was the first segment. February 26th was the second segment. And even in the second segment, when there was an uptick in certain elements of their play, still not killing the rush was still an issue for them. When you're not killing the rush and you're not forcing teams to relinquish the puck possession, you're not getting back to pucks. You're not maybe getting first on pucks on breakouts and puck recoveries. And guess what? They're near the bottom of the league at forcing teams to dump the puck in. And then they're near the bottom of the league, or actually at the bottom of the league, recovering dump-ins against them. So it's this whole racetrack of space. You could land a Boeing through the neutral zone, through the transition zone, and they've just got their opponents have all kinds of time and space to either create with possession or regain possession. So as we fire up the clips, and actually it's just mind-boggling. It comes down to details. And actually, Pat, let's put up the stats first. The first stat board comparing where they are this year to last year, right? Like it's close, but it's off. It really is off. There's certain numbers at 5-on-5 that are just struggling. So as we go fire up the clips, the transition itself is a huge issue. And today's segment is really going to focus on two major areas of defensive play. First being through the transition. Look at the gap, right? Like they just watch Seattle just skate right through. They go through the trapezoid area. I came up with that kind of term, that trap goals. And then watch this. What are you defending with your butt on the wall? Look how the hoping and poking. Boom, it's in the back of the net. Like, you can't defend the wall and hope and poke in this league. Quick up beats 3 players. Watch these 2 guys change. So instead of a 3-on-5 rush, it's a 3-on-3. Tomasino gets it. They win that game. Here, over forechecking by 1, but you're still in a good position. Should not be a problem. Kako, you can't defend a pass not moving your feet. So they're near the bottom of the league in odd man rushes against, and we can see why. Watch here, Miller. Get back. No getting back. Hey, let's stand on the wall. Boom, 2-on-1. Like it's nonsensical, the lack of urgency with the puck and what happens after they lose possession. They lose possession. 2 guys go for a skate behind the net. 2 guys go for a skate outside dots. And now you went from a 2-on-2 rush to an odd man rush once again. Look at this. Miller pinching on who? I don't know. Breakout pass through the middle. And under, what is it, like 5.5 seconds, boom, it's in the back of the net from 200 feet away. They are not interrupting anybody's path. They are not disrupting any possession. And then when in doubt, they go out of their way to forecheck into areas they should not be doing that. Like, they fade at outside dots, and they're giving away so many odd man rushes.
So when you take a look at that, and we can see that the rush defense is certainly an issue here, it's not really that much better in the defensive zone for the Rangers, who really have that reliance on Igor Shesterkin, hence why he gets $92 million. What are some of the areas when you look at their defensive zone game that opponents have exploited them, John?
Well, you look at, so if teams don't score off the rush, right? They're creating off the rush. They're getting attempts. They're getting tons of chances. If they're not scoring off the rush, well, then what's next? You got to recover the puck. Well, guess what? They're not recovering the puck. So the offensive team is recovering the puck. Then the offensive team does what? They create more offensive zone possession against the Rangers. And again, I'll go back to that term, trap goals, right? I know it was kind of a silly thing I did during COVID about 3 years ago, and we've talked about it on these episodes. I did an article about it, but every time this puck goes through the trapezoid, they get spun around like nobody's business. And then lastly, and it'll be the first few clips, it's big, strong guys not chipping pucks out and guys hoping that the puck gets out. So these are their numbers in the last 14 games. They've played 28. These are the last 14. These are not very good numbers. PK has still been very good. They're number 2 in the league overall, but these are not very good numbers. And you'll see why, because they're allowing teams to just get all kinds of time and space. They turn over pucks, hoping it gets out, so they create an on-man situation, and then pucks that travel through the trapezoid give them a ton of trouble. And we'll see a lot of those mismatches and lack of communication and details in the clips coming up right here. So we're going to see this against Canadians. Kreider, boom, 2 Boston College guys. That's got to get out. Watch these 3 guys. Where are we going? Like, it's nonsensical. That would have been a 2-on-4. Here, Cooley. I like the way Cooley plays. Doesn't get out. No problem. I'm actually okay with Panarin there. But look at Miller and look at Hedl. Go for a skate. All of a sudden, it's a on-man situation. You're giving it away. They are lucky to win that game. They were giving it away. Play the depth of the zone. You can't go east-west there. There's no space. No problem. Right? 1 turnover, no problem. 2nd turnover. 2 turnovers in the same sequence equal big trouble. And then look at the confusion. It came out of the trapezoid to the corner. Who's got who? 5 guys in the pick. It should be good. Trapezoid. Do we see any physicality here? No. A lot of hoping and poking. Lindgren loses his guy. Puck goes through the trapezoid again. 5 guys in a pick. Schneider should have his guy. You cannot defend without good sticks and not moving your feet. Watch, another turnover. It is Zibanejad again. This was against St. Louis. 5 guys in the pick. No way Kyrou should get this pass. Again, who's got who? And this is an area, I've talked about it with NHL coaches, AHL coaches. It doesn't matter. That trapezoid area, that is an easy drill that you can hammer into your practices where you just have the puck travel through skating, chipping, loose puck, or carries into the trapezoid, and then it ignites defensive zone coverage situations. They've got to work on that. ASAP.
So we learned a couple things. We knew the trap term for a while, but now we've got a new Jon Goyens phrase. It's hoping and poking. Explains me all through college. Way to go, John.
Come on, Frank. Also, yeah, someone said in the
Isn't
chat,
that married life?
hoping and poking is the exact term I've been searching for to describe this team. So the YouTube chat loving it. Let me throw you our poll question quickly before we let you go. Obviously, we know changes need to be made in the way they are playing, but roster construction wise, our question was, if you could add one thing to this Rangers team, would it be a scoring forward or a good defenseman? Which one do you think they need more?
I think the forwards, I think they've got the forwards. I think some of the guys just need to start playing some big boy hockey and hold themselves accountable. They need a D-man. That a lot of people need D, but you get Trouba out, love him, hate him, doesn't matter. You need a defenseman in that core to solidify it, because you got a lot of youth. When your veteran statesman is Fox and then everybody else is basically born in the 2000s, you need some veteran presence there to settle those things down.
Hoping, poking, and the need for a big... I'll stop my sentence right there. Jon Goyens, fantastic analysis. As always, we'll chat with you again next week.
Have a good one.
Frank, let's get to our poll question results here real quick, actually, since we were just talking about it with John. Brought to you by Dominion Lending Centers. Is your mortgage up for renewal? Lock in the best rates by speaking with one of their mortgage experts. Visit dominionlending.ca. Over on Twitter, 62% said they need a shutdown defenseman more than they need more scoring, agreeing with Jon Goyens there. And our YouTube was actually the same, 67% going in the way of a shutdown defenseman. Do you agree with that, Frank?
Yeah, I do. I think watching those clips, it's easy to see how and why they've gotten lost, and also to see that it might be fixable.
Yeah, that is, it was great work from Jon Goyens to point out some of those things. And also interesting when you consider the appearances we had from John last year, just how long some of this stuff has been lingering. Let's get to the YouTube chat for our daily Faceoff inbox question, brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated. And you can get a custom ring built and delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program. Find out more by visiting them online at charmdiamondcenters.com. From one New York team to the other, Flyer Voracek wants to know, what are the Islanders thinking right now in regards to Brock Nelson? Frank, I would imagine where they are in the standings will determine that a bit, right?
Yeah, it has to. I don't know how they could possibly be outside of the playoff mix come Four Nations time in February, when Brock Nelson's going to have a chance to show himself to the world, playing for Team USA, that he's someone that they have to hang on to if they're out of the mix. They need change. Something's got to be different. And, you know, you can add Minnesota Wild and their GM and Bill Guerin, who obviously selected Nelson to this team, as among the teams that would be interested in getting him.
That would be very interesting. Minnesota native. Let's move along to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. I almost had a winner yesterday. I just needed that Troy Terry point. But anyways, I move on to tonight, and the Washington Capitals on the puck line. I love the way this Capital team plays, Frank. And tonight they're getting a chance to go up against a goalie who I believe he is making his first start of the season in Jet Greaves. So I like Washington in this one, going up against a goalie playing for the first time in the NHL this year. And plus 150 is such a juicy price tag. So I dig that. Also, I like the Leafs on the puck line, but I want to use the same game parlay tool to juice it up a little bit here. Minus 150 on the puck line for the Leafs going up against a Ducks team that just got smoked by Ottawa last night. I like Toronto to roll them, and I like Marner and Matthews to each have big nights. Matthews has had 3 multi-point games in his last 5. Same thing for Mitch Marner, or sorry, 2 for Matthews, 3 for Marner. Plus 300 is the price tag. So those are my 2 picks for tonight. You like the Leafs or the Caps more, Frank, on the puck line?
I think I like the Caps more on the puck line. Just, you never know when a team just got bounced the night before. I know, human nature would suggest that the Ducks, just don't have the goods tonight, but usually when you get shellacked, that you kind of snap to attention, and it's not crazy travel.
Yeah, that is fair as well. Let's wrap up the show with a little bit of garbage time, Frank. And yesterday, or the other day, the San Jose Sharks dropped an absolute banger of a Christmas musical. And I wanted to give some love. Again, yes, I wanted to give some love to who I think may have the hardest verse of the Christmas season in Sharks defenseman Mario Ferraro. Let's take a listen.
We are Team Teal coming out of the West, where the holiday decorations are the best. You drive down the streets, they're unmistakable. Holiday decor that is inflatable. My neighbors drive by and they all stare at festive characters filled with air. The sun goes down, they're as big as a blimp. When the sun comes up, my boys go limp.
It's well worth your 5 minutes. Mario Ferraro is so good.
It's insane, and you can tell why Mario Ferraro and Johnny Lazarus are good friends. They both never stop.
That's a great point as well. Okay, that is a wrap on today's edition of the show. Shout out to Jon Goyens for swinging by for his weekly appearance, our producer, Pat Puff. Everybody in the YouTube chat, you were fantastic. As always, we will be back tomorrow at noon Eastern. Enjoy the busy Thursday in the NHL, and we'll chat with you on Friday. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.